So maybe we're ready to go, and I'll call to order the meeting of the Environment and Natural Areas Committee of November 18, 2024. And folks, we've got an agenda before us. Is there any amendments to the agenda? Yes, Councillor.
I'll move from.
Thank you. So moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. So the agenda is approved. We have no presentations. With public participation, would anybody like to speak tonight?
Good evening, Nicole Shaken, the Vaughan Road resident. It's so good to be able to speak at a meeting of the Environment and Natural Areas Committee. It's been a bit of a long hiatus. I think it's been over 5 months since this committee had a meeting, and that is a long time to wait for updates on the work of the committee and also for public participation. And as you know, there is so much work to be done in Metcho to meet the climate targets laid out in the Climate Action Plan. So I look forward to more updates on steps being taken toward the priority actions that are detailed in the plan. For instance, what progress has been made within each of the 5 priority areas identified in the plan, particularly buildings. As you all know, after transportation, buildings are identified as the second largest source of GHG emissions in Metchosin, and retrofitting buildings for energy efficiency is a priority action. This is given how few new builds occur in Metchosin, it just makes the retrofit work even more important. And I've had a chance, as you know, Councillor Gray, to reach out to you about the potential of retrofitting buildings like the community hall, a vital space that is so well used and appreciated, but that currently uses heating oil, unfortunately one of the worst GHG emitters, and would set a great example of energy retrofitting by getting off diesel and installing heat pumps. So that kind of model, retrofit would sure start the climate action going in this community. And as I say, this kind of concrete action can't happen fast enough if Metcho is to reach the climate targets, which are described as ambitious in the plan. Conservation corridors also certainly play a part, and it's really good to see them mentioned in your councillor's update. However, I wonder if the proposed request around conservation corridors and amenity zoning is the most practical when it comes to ways that the district can support conservation corridors. While it may not hurt, I'm pretty sure that staff doesn't need to be told by politicians to encourage amenity zoning or to adhere to provincial riparian areas regulations. I trust they are doing this as a matter of course. But certainly there are concrete ways that staff can be more empowered to support conservation. Something that would make a real difference is a stronger proof of water policy for any proposed subdivisions on well water. With a practical policy tool like this, staff could do more around groundwater conservation. As well, the Environment Committee might benefit from closer scrutiny of the section you point out in your councillor's update, Councillor Gray, on amenity zoning in our OCP. Specifically, I'm thinking of the generic calculus that's used to determine the density of an amenity rezoning. That is the bonus lots that Metchosin gives a developer in exchange for cluster development. Currently, to determine the density, our OCP simply uses the total property size divided by the minimum lot size permitted in that zone. This abstract calculation doesn't take into account the specific ecological lay of the land, wetland areas, mossy balds, and so on. I recall when the Beckingham application was first presented to the past council in 2022, the planner at that time therefore divided the 100-acre parcel by the 5-acre minimum to arrive at 20 lots on well water. This was prior to the developers revising their application to include the extension of city water in exchange for 4 more lots. The planner, of course, had to adhere to our OCP and its amenity calculus in order to protect against legal risk. However, the math is overly generic, And I believe staff would be better able to support conservation goals if the OCP contained a more nuanced ecological calculus for determining density. That's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, let's go through our agenda. The first item up is adoption of minutes. The Environment and Natural Areas Committee of June 10, 2024.
Move adoption.
Thank you, Councillor Schutten. And seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any comments or concerns, corrections? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The next item is the Environment Advisory Select Committee meeting of September 24th, just receiving these minutes.
Move receipt.
Thank you, Councillor Schuppen. Move to receipt. And anyone like to second that? Thank you, Councillor Hupp. Any discussion, questions, or comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. So we'll turn now to my councillor's update. And I've got a few items on here. The first one is to report back the use of pesticides and herbicides. As we all know, there is a policy here that the district has, which is to not use these products for cosmetic purposes on district land and encourage not using these compounds elsewhere in the district. And you asked for me to take a look at it, and we did look at it and said that we think that Colwood is gone in the right direction. We looked at a number of other resources, and we think that it would be worthwhile moving further to actually ban the use of these products in Metcho with specific exemptions for farm use and the management of invasives. So my request is that the Environment Committee recommend Council request staff draft a pesticide bylaw to restrict further the use of these products in Metcho. And as I say, we've got quite a few resources to look at to help with that, including the Green Bylaws toolkit. Councillor Schuppen.
Oh, I think Councillor Donaldson.
Well,
Or Councillor Donaldson, excuse me.
a question and a comment. We already have a bylaw, correct?
Policy.
Oh, policy, so we're looking at green, okay. Because it was a number of months ago, maybe even it was last year, I can't remember, where Miss was asking about using products in our ditching, I guess, road boulevards maybe it is, maybe it's not ditching, it was the boulevards where there would be overgrown of blackberries and that sort of thing. And I don't know where we are on that to date, if we are actually doing that or if we ever went through. So,
yeah, I think what I recall is that they were concerned about treating holly in particular. Okay. So it was the idea that they're active in Metcho, and that's the MISC group, right. Metcho Invasive Species Cooperative. And they're clearing land and clearing invasives in parks and on private property. And one of their big focus is on holly. And the holly is cut and then dabbed with a herbicide called Garlon, and it's an effective way of dealing with the holly problem. So I think they were talking about working in the ditches, and they were in touch with Public Works, and perhaps we could ask our CEO, Mr. Pyatt, just an update on that, if things have carried on, or where we are with the treatment of, or the work of Public Works and the MISC group are working together, I think.
Oh, I was getting stiff anyways. I can talk a little bit about that through the chair.
Thank you.
Have been in discussion with Neil, with MISC, I believe, and he's very enthusiastic, has funding, grant funding, has purchased product, and has an application expert available. Our staff, 2 members of our staff have recently received their certificate to apply, and so together we shall meet and move along with holly and blackberry. So if we could, use the product, and our staff can do the labor and Neil can be the expert, we have a match. So that's where we're at so far. And it's not something we need to rush into. The product, I don't think there's a shelf life so much on the product. So I just want to make sure that this goes smoothly. I don't want to have union issues. So between having experts advise and our staff doing the labor, we should have a good result.
Certainly, thanks. And I think it was holly that we were talking about, not so much blackberries. Blackberries typically are dug up. I know you're new to the coast, Bob. So
blackberry, you can cut it and you can dab it with something.
We're reluctant to use so much of the pesticides. So I think the preference would be, we could go to Miaska about that if you like.
Yeah.
So blackberries, I think the best management practice is to remove them mechanically, and then only if when alternative methods are not successful. So you go at it and you see what you can do, and if you were having trouble, then you might move to a product.
Yeah.
But most of us, I imagine, around the table and in the audience have been digging blackberry for a long time. You clear an area. You can also clear them with pigs. There's other methods. But I'm not sure that I'd be in support of using the pesticides in Metcho. But Councillor Donaldson, you were asking a question.
Yeah, so this summer I was actually approached by the president of the Equestrian Society. Did I know that we were using this on municipal property? Because Mr. West actually had contacted MES regarding the blackberries behind the riding ring. Previously, what we had done is we had dug those out, and we have also had the work release crew come out and do that. And so the concern was that you start putting chemical on them and the horses eat them, and we have a lot of visitors that come when we're doing clinics or shows or whatever, and the last thing we want is a fatal situation. So they've decided not to engage with that activity, and they'll probably continue taking them out. Similar situation was the community garden, and I had a conversation with Mr. West where I did have to do most of the listening, but I was very clear that we will not happen actually in the garden, because if we were ever to want to be certified organic, we wouldn't be able to. So it is a concern amongst some of the community members. So I'm interested to see if we can get a bylaw on this, if that's what your intent is here with this motion.
Yeah, so we came, excuse me, Councillor Shukin.
No, go ahead.
We're just going to say we'd come forward before saying, would you like me asked to look at it? So we looked at it, and we're just coming back, and if council, if the committee would like to, we say move forward. It seems to make sense in terms of the environmental protection. We're kind of off on a different topic about, well, no, that's okay, what we're doing with our invasives on our property. But I think the arrangement we talked about previously at this table, I don't know if it was Environment Committee or Council, but was the treatment of holly with the herbicide, but I wasn't aware we were going after blackberries. I think that's another, we should use a different non-toxic approach there. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Councillor Gray. I'm sympathetic to moving ahead toward a bylaw. My only question is throwing one more thing at staff, particularly where we have a number of bylaws that are still outstanding that we've decided as our priority. And with that, we've also got with staff the question of housing, the question of the school, the asset management plan, the budget, regular items, of course. And I'm just wondering if we can maybe defer this for some time. The other thing that I think would be good, you've mentioned there's a good body of information, but we don't really have anything in the package, and it would be helpful to get that out. I recall seeing the policy on June 10th, but it'd be great to see some of the other things and even relate the experience around enforcement in particular. So, but
sure.
But I don't know if we need a motion, but I'm just wondering if we might defer this for a few months so we can get through some of the core bylaws that.
Certainly, I was going to speak to that if so we brought it forward to ask council, yes, please, should we do it, should we not? Yes, come back, said good idea, and so that's what we're bringing to you tonight. I agree with you 100% that this would be after all the other things we've got listed right now. So I was looking for a motion tonight that can go on our list and be done within in a proper time. But no, I'm not myself thinking that it would be the top priority for this district. It's simply to move the dial.
Okay.
So if you would like to entertain a motion tonight, otherwise we can defer it entirely.
Personally, I would request deferring it. And again, if there's, we don't need hundreds of pages of information, but it'd be great if there's a package from the research that Miask has done. That'd be.
Well, what I could do is come back maybe next year with it. We do have a big list. I'm totally there. It was more the idea of, did this council want to go on record to get to improve this bylaw, yes or no? And if not, then it'll go, and we can come back to it, as they say, a year from now or something, before the end of the term, perhaps.
Or even within 6 months or something like that. So
We have quite a list of bylaws, I think, that we're looking at. So
okay.
I was only it was the grace of the desire of the council that we get advice. That's the advice. And if you don't want to proceed, that's fine with me.
That's my sense of things. But
Anybody else like to make a comment?
I'll just make one comment. The Bilson Watershed Habitat Protection Association had been doing some work with eradicating gorse and blackberries and that sort of stuff. So it would be interesting to hear what success they've had so far, if any of that's come back, and what methods they actually used.
Sure.
Just as background.
What I'll do is I'll bring it back. I'll see if I can calendarize it for a year from now, and you'll just check in and see what the interest level is, and I'll provide some information so if you want to look at it then. In the meantime, if staff tell us that we've done all of our other bylaws, then we'll bring this one forward.
Correct.
I was surprised when council or the committee asked that we have Miask look at it, to be honest, given the workload. Made a little.
Yeah, from the June 20th minutes. So what we asked to do was to give us advice regarding the expanding of the District Metcho's Public Works policy, the policy on elimination of pesticides and herbicides for cosmetic purposes on municipal grounds. So I'm gathering what your conversation was, is you decided not to expand on the policy, but you've decided that we should have a bylaw instead.
Correct. I guess the idea would be a policy would say, I suppose, might say, don't do this. You know, that would what we would add to it. It already covers all the district. So it'd be asking the public. The policy already says that the district will be encouraging the public not to use herbicides and pesticides. So it's hard to know how to expand the policy. It is what it is. But if council had some direct, I think we're deferring this entirely though, so because of the workload. So if you'd like to get more advice, or some other idea, happy to pursue that, but perhaps at a later date. Very good. The next item then was installation of a bat box at Blaney Trail. So sometime back, a local resident offered to purchase a box down for Blaney Trail. So I talked to Mark Atherton, and at the time he was, in principle, saying that sounds like a good idea, but we need to gather some people together and go down. And the issue was, would it be feasible? Is it a good location? Hat was going to come and help provide some advice, but he advised that PTASC wasn't in a position to assist with putting the pole in. He asked that it's a good idea, and the chair supports the idea of it at that site, and Habitat Acquisition Trust would help. And the question was, are we interested in pursuing that as a council? Providing staff direction to see if we can get one up there. We would, of course, involve PTASC in terms of the site, and that they're happy with that. Councillor?
I think it would be a great idea. I'm just wondering, on your request, it says that council requests staff work with HAT. I just wondered what you expected staff to do.
I think take the whole.
A role?
A hole with it, that the pole goes in. And the installation typically is, it could be on a tree, but typically down there from the look of the trees, it would be digging a hole to put the pipe in that holds the bat box in the air. And it turned out that PTASC wasn't able to do that, and they would be the other option, I suppose.
I'm happy to bring this back to PTASC. It would, of course, we'd want correspondence just to know who we're dealing with or who PTASC would be dealing with. So, yeah. I can move that the Environment Committee recommend Council request staff work with HAT in collaboration with PTASC to install a donated bat box at Blaney Trail. So moved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder there?
Second.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Okay, Mayor Little.
No, unfortunately, there are some dead trees as a result of the illegal cutting of the trees. So some of those poles or dead trees may be good sites for adhering a bat box to, rather than digging a hole and another pole there. There's already some poles there that could be used.
Perfect. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So the next item was just an information piece. Mayor Little and I have received correspondence from the Salish Gull project, and a number of years running now. And just so you know, the project is happening in Metcho lands. And kind of an interesting thing what they're doing on the gulls is they put colored bands on that you can see from a distance, and then you can report those bands into them if you see a gull with wearing a bracelet. And they're tracking them for some scientific evaluation of their habits. They presented a talk walk last year. It was pretty interesting. Anyway, they're back in town. The next item on the agenda is a question about encouraging and connecting conservation corridors in Metchosin. And we're all aware, of course, of the work of the Metchosin Foundation, with the BC Parks Foundation. And Middleton Conservation Corridor Project and Merritt Hill to Roach Cove project they're working on. And as that goes on, we've heard the benefits of encouraging amenity zoning or cluster housing on subdivision properties. And we've had a number of other things going on in our area. Of course, the Cheyenne Nation voted in the community referendum towards establishing a tribal park at Merritt Hill, and then Wheaties Beach is a key biodiversity area. Things are happening, kind of moving along in a very positive direction. And it seemed to me that it was time for us to take a public position to say that we actually like the idea of cluster housing and development. It would be a good idea, and advise our CAO of that formally. And also that we would like to see the provincial riparian area protections kept up. Now you might ask, well, why? I've been doing some reading about the approving officer and the role in land titles, and the approving officer has tremendous powers and authority, but they don't need to, for example, follow the riparian area protections. It's not a requirement anywhere. So I just wanted it to be known that this council feels that we should follow them. That's the kind of thing, the reason why. We heard from Nicole Schuch, and she wasn't sure what the reason would be for this, and to let the approving officer know what we think about it. We can't direct him specifically in accordance with the legislation on any particular application, but it's quite permissible for us to say, we really like this idea. Councillor Schuch.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Gray. I confess to having some issues with this motion as it's stated on the page here. For a few reasons. There's two distinct issues that are conjoined in a single motion: amenity zoning, and then direction to staff to enforce the provincial riparian protection standards. They can be related, but essentially they're two distinct issues. And the second part is, I find problematic because we're talking about enforcing provincial riparian area protection standards. So standards, guidelines, so the enforcement of those, I feel again that those two things don't necessarily connect. But more so, I think before I was to vote in support of this, I would need some more background. And we get, whether it's a report, the information you provide, I mean, the default is always going back and requesting a staff report. But to me, there needs to be a little bit more from my perspective before I would back, again, the enforcement of provincial riparian area standards. I need some more information.
Sure, maybe I can tell you that the practice, we heard from the provincial, when we were looking into the question of riparian area regulations with the recent subdivision application, we learned from the provincial people that Langford, approving officer, was allowing wetlands to be filled in with gravel. So you just lose the wetlands. So the idea here is that we sort of let the approving officer know what our views are. We would like to maintain the provincial regulations. It's the approving officer who is in charge of that. To me, it's a fundamental issue for us to protect biodiversity in Metchosin and support the conservation corridors, which is work ongoing. And I think if we want to attract that kind of activity and keep it going, then we need to take positions on this kind of thing. I understand your opposition. Anyone else like to speak?
No. Oh, sorry, if I can just clarify. It's not so much opposition. It's, again, understanding what it is we're enforcing. So to me, the riparian regulations are fairly, I feel at some point I have a grasp on them and then it slips away. So I would want to have more of an understanding of what it is we're directing staff to enforce. So that's what I'm asking.
So like a tutorial on the riparian regulations type thing for council?
Something like that, yeah.
Councillor Donaldson?
Question, so the provincial riparian area protection standards, is that SPIA?
There's a Riparian Protection Act,
Okay.
and so what happens is that when a development is to occur, the province says that automatically there's protections put around say a creek or a water course. And then in order to decide where, say, a house can go or something like that, where a lot will be, the landowner will bring in a qualified professional to look at the piece of property and say, if that's protected automatically, now that we're actually ground truthing, we can actually allow the development to get closer to the water course. And the qualified professionals there says, go closer here, can go closer there. And that's accepted by the district typically to say, very good, you're now meeting the standards required by the province. The issue for the province is that they may require them, but they have no enforcement at all. It's totally up to the district to do the enforcement, to do the keep with the standards, yes or no. Hope that helps. It may be a thought that people mostly knew about how that scheme worked. We've discussed it, of course, in camera a few times, and I thought people were aware of what we were talking about.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Sorry, and as I understand it, there is some discretion that the QEP has in terms of defining what I believe is called the SPIA, the Streamside Protection and Enhancement Area.
Excuse me.
So yeah. So again, it to me it's a moving mental target in terms of my grasp of it. So I have reluctance to support it right now without having more information.
Yeah, I'm just talking about upholding the provincial standards, not some odd or unusual thing. Very little.
Thank you. I am in favor of encouraging and connecting conservation corridors in Metchosin, and I am in favor of the Shannon Nations Tribal Park. But I'm very reluctant to support this motion. I would say, aren't staff already doing that, encouraging the use of OCP Article 6.8, the amenity zoning? Perhaps our effort should be in modifying that part of the OCP 6.8 in terms of the amenities and lands, in terms of the 25% of the total area, for instance. That might be someplace where we could have the most bang for our buck. And it just feels a little bit disrespectful of our staff. We're not Langford. Our staff understand that we are not Langford, and we would never agree, the staff would never agree to filling in riparian area with stones and rocks. There is a fine line between council and the approving officer. So we get to speak and we get to discuss subdivisions when there is an amenity, when there is amenity zoning. However, when a subdivision application comes forward, it is the right of the applicant to bring it forward to the approving officer, and council is supposed to stay out of it. I just think it's a little disrespectful, and I won't be supporting the motion.
Sure, perhaps I should have said I've discussed this with the CEO and he's happy with the motion. I think maybe then, we've got a few people not supporting, nobody's actually made a motion, so we don't need to continue discussing this. I think what I might suggest is that I think we might benefit from a bigger discussion about the whole subdivision process and what I'm trying to get at here. And I would suggest that we maybe have the CAO, council, the planner, and have our lawyers come in and explain to us the subdivision authority of what the approving officer does, so we actually understand that a little bit better. My understanding is that the approving officer can actually require cluster housing in a subdivision if they're concerned about environmental issues. And I think it might be helpful for us to have a seminar like that and sort of get all up to speed as to where we're at. So maybe I'll make that motion that we ask our staff to organize a meeting with our seminar with our legal counsel and a planner to discuss the issue of subdivisions and approving officers' role, so we understand it and know where the boundaries are. So we can get educated on it as you were remarking. Okay, seeing no seconder, no discussion. Councillor?
I was just going to say that I think, I think that we're all well aware of the amenity zoning part in the bylaws. We just went through this with Beckingham, which for me personally was a huge disappointment that we gave up a chance for that amenity zoning and a wildlife corridor and piped water. So, I think the idea of directing staff to encourage and support the use, I think it's, I really don't think it's necessary. I think staff is well aware of it as our council, and it's, I just really don't see the purpose in it.
So I'll just explain to say that this staff might be well aware of it, but if I were a staff listening to the conversation tonight, I might have my doubts about your support for those things. That's the object of the motion, to say we as a council support this. If we each speak individually, we don't amount to much. It's really through resolution and bylaws that we have an effect. And so having a discussion tonight and saying we're choosing not to encourage staff to do this is a move that might be discouraging. But I understand that maybe not sure I understand, but I accept your trepidation on the issue. Thank you. Let's move on to the next item, which is Metcho's and stormwater management planning. So I guess we know that there continues to be uncertainty about what's going to happen up there, but I've heard from representatives of the Bilston Watershed Habitat Protection Association discuss this with the CAO. There is an idea that we should prepare, or at least here, not decide tonight, but ask to get some idea of what might it cost to deal with water quality and flow monitoring, and possibly some other water management activities in this budget. And I might ask our CEO to speak to that.
Okay, through the chair, this past budget we had funding available for buffer land to help with the cost of consultation with regard to protection of the land via the quality and quantity of water And so we did hire a consultant and didn't use as much of the funding as I thought we would, so we can roll over that. We could roll over that funding for 2025 through the budgeting process. I think that would be suitable. I have been working with Bilston Creek, Friends of Bilston Creek? Is that correct?
Bilston Watershed
Bilston
Habitat.
Watershed Habitat.
Protection
Watershed
Society.
protection, yeah.
Lovely, lovely people. And I think that would be a good move, that we put aside some funding to help them, help us in monitoring what could potentially be, clean water coming into the creek, but we want to make sure from the Langford construction. Okay?
Thank you.
Just through the chair, just wondering if we're getting any information from Langford, like when the stormwater detection pond was going to be chosen, we held the guarantees that the water flow was going to be the same as previous levels and so on and so forth. And I just wondered, now that it's going to be in Langford, are they going to keep us, informed about the same kind of things and same guarantees that they had when it was here?
Yeah, I believe so, and we are due for another meeting. They're probably waiting for design of their system, so until that's at a certain point, really, we have not much to meet about. But yeah, we'll keep pushing on all of the good work that we're working on for the chosen on that situation with the water quality and quantity, and I don't see any concern yet, but if we see any problems during our meetings, I'll bring them forward quickly. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Pyatt? No, great. Councillor Shukin?
Yeah, I'm supportive of the motion. The one thing just for clarity.
I just don't think we have a motion.
Okay.
Does anyone
your
make a
request.
motion?
Yeah. Well, no motion yet. Sorry, as it's stated on the page here. The only thing that I wanted to clarify is stormwater management costs. We might just do a comma splice and say including water quality testing, because I don't necessarily see that in stormwater management. That's, yeah.
Sure.
So I think one of the big things is quality testing, stormwater
Absolutely.
testing. Yeah.
Is there anyone interested in moving a motion to that effect? If not, we'll move on into adjournment. Councillor Shukin?
Yeah. I would move that the Environment Committee recommend the CAO advise the Finance Committee on potential Metchosin Creek stormwater management costs, including water quality testing in relation to the 2025 budget.
I'll
So-
second that.
Very good. So we're talking about that. And I wonder, did you want to talk about the quality, the quantity as well, or just leave it be? You're happy? I'm good to go. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. I think we're done with the business of the meeting tonight. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.